May 25, 1982, 9:30 a.m. local time. Northwest of Falklands Sound. Captain David Hart Dyke stands in the operations room of HMS Coventry, 44 years old, steady hands gripping the edge of the plotting table. The gray destroyer cuts through South Atlantic swells, paired with HMS Broadsword, moving into position. Both ships know their orders. Draw the Argentine aircraft away from San Carlos Bay. Be the bait. The Type 42 destroyer had been at war for 3 weeks. Hart Dyke's crew painted a Union flag on the bridge roof, a black stripe down the funnel to the waterline. Recognition markers, because Argentina operates 2 Type 42s of their own. The war makes siblings strangers. In the operations room, green radar screens paint circles of light across focused faces. Spanish interpreters sit with headphones, listening. Coventry carries special communications equipment, fitted for a Soviet intelligence mission that never happened. Instead, they intercept Argentine radio chatter. Hart Dyke can hear President Galtieri talking, Foreign Minister Costa Mendez, and the pilots, always the pilots, their voices crackling through static as they coordinate attacks against British ships. The position is deliberate, close to land, not enough open sea between Coventry and the coast. Her Sea Dart missiles, designed in the 1960s to counter aircraft threats, work best with distance. Here, with Pebble Island's terrain masking incoming jets until the last seconds, the system's reaction time becomes a liability. But Broadsword carries Seawolf, short-range anti-aircraft missiles meant precisely for this kind of close engagement. The trap is set. At 9:30 a.m., radar contact. An A-4B Skyhawk, Group of 5, climbing away from Pebble Island. Coventry's crew locks on through the link system with Broadsword. Hart Dyke orders the fire. 2 Sea Darts streak upward, a salvo, ensuring at least one connects after disappointing misses earlier in the month. Capitan Hugo Angel del Valle Palaver doesn't eject. His Skyhawk C-244 disintegrates north of Pebble Island. Broadsword reports a parachute. Coventry's gun crews see ground impact. The operations room buzzes. Did they hit 2 targets instead of 1? The confusion doesn't matter. First blood. But Coventry's communications intelligence section picks up something else. Argentine radio traffic. Calm voices reporting coordinates. Their position has been transmitted to the mainland. Rio Gallegos Air Base now knows exactly where the British destroyer sits. Rio Gallegos Air Base, southern Argentina, 1:15 p.m. local time. 4 A-4B Skyhawks sit on the tarmac, engines already warming. Grupo 5, V Brigada Aérea. American-built aircraft from the 1960s, purchased before relations with Washington soured. The pilots know every rivet, every limitation. No electronic countermeasures, no chaff dispensers, no radar warning receivers. Just the aircraft, bombs, and the skill to put ordnance on target. Capitan Pablo Marcos Rafael Carballo climbs into C-215. 28 years old, he checks his load. 3 1,000-pound Mark 17 bombs slung under the fuselage and wings. His wingman, Primer Teniente Carlos Rinque, carries the same. 2 more Skyhawks complete the formation. Teniente Mariano Velasco in C-207, Alferez Leonardo Barionwo in C-212. The mission brief is simple. 2 British warships operating together northwest of Pebble Island. Type 42 destroyer, Type 22 frigate. Approach low over water. Attack from different axes. Get in, drop bombs, get out before the missiles launch. Carballo knows the odds. Grupo 5 has been hemorrhaging aircraft since May 1st. San Carlos Bay, Bomb Alley to the British, Death Valley to the Argentines. Every mission costs planes, costs pilots. The Type 42 Sea Dart has already claimed victims, but intelligence says the ships are close to land. Less time for radar lock, less time for missile flight. Engines reach full power. The 4 A-4B Skyhawks roll down the runway at 1:20 p.m., lifting into cold southern sky. Maximum endurance at low level. 30 minutes over target before fuel becomes critical. The distance to the Falklands, 435 miles.
They'll have maybe 5 minutes to find the ships, coordinate the attack, make the run. Carballo levels off at wave-top height. The South Atlantic stretches gray and endless beneath his canopy. No GPS, no satellite navigation. Just compass, stopwatch, and dead reckoning refined through weeks of war. The formation tightens, radio silence. 4 aircraft become one element, hunting. Behind them, Rio Gallegos fades into distance. Ahead, somewhere in that expanse of ocean and rock, two British warships wait. Carballo's hands rest light on the stick. He thinks about the mission, about timing, about angles of approach, the mathematics of survival at 500 knots. The coast of East Falkland appears as a dark line on the horizon. Carballo checks his watch. On time, on course. He leads the formation across the shoreline, terrain masking their approach from British radar. Pebble Island passes beneath the left wing. Then, through broken cloud, the targets. HMS Coventry, 1:55 p.m. local time. The operations room has been at action stations for hours. Hart Dyke moves between the radar consoles and the plotting table, monitoring the link system connecting Coventry with Broadsword. The two ships maintain formation, Broadsword to starboard, her Sea Wolf system ready for close-range intercepts. The tactical marriage should work. Sea Dart for high-altitude threats, Sea Wolf for the low-level attacks the Argentines favor. A radar operator's voice cuts through the ambient hum. Multiple contacts, low level, bearing 270. Hart Dyke steps to the console. 4 aircraft, maybe 5 miles out, hugging the water. The Sea Dart system begins calculations. Range, altitude, closure rate. But something's wrong. The aircraft are splitting. 2 breaking north, 2 continuing inbound from the west. The tactical problem becomes immediate. Sea Dart requires the ship to point her bow at the target. Coventry begins to turn into the northern pair. Her engines respond, the destroyer heeling through the maneuver. But Broadsword, following doctrine, turns to keep station. The frigate's Sea Wolf radar loses lock. Coventry's superstructure now blocks the line of sight to the southern pair. Hart Dyke sees the geometry collapsing. Port 30! Coventry reverses her turn, swinging back toward the western threats. The deck tilts, men grab for handholds. The Sea Dart system tries to reacquire. Radar operators call ranges. 3 miles! 2 miles! Pablo Carballo sees the destroyer turning. The Type 42's distinctive profile, boxy superstructure, single gun forward, angular radar arrays. She's presenting her port side, the turn still incomplete. Beside him, Rinke holds formation. They're committed now. The attack run has seconds remaining. 1 mile. Carballo's finger hovers over the release. He's trained for this, visual bombing, no computer assistance, just the pilot's eye measuring angles and speed. The destroyer fills his windscreen. He can see sailors on deck, the Union flag painted on the bridge roof, details that shouldn't be visible but are because he's this close. Too close for missiles to track. Sea Wolf finally reacquires. Broadsword system fires 1 missile. Then silence. Mechanical failure. The launcher jams. The second missile never leaves the rail. Carballo presses the release. 3 bombs separate from C-242, arcing toward Coventry's port side. Beside him, Rinke does the same. 6 500-pound bombs, all falling toward the same target. The Skyhawks pull up, engines screaming, banking hard away from the destroyer. Carballo feels the G-forces compress him into the seat. His aircraft clears Coventry's mast by feet, not yards. Then, he's past, racing toward open water. Hart Dyke watches the bombs fall. The first misses forward, exploding in the sea beside the bow. White water erupts, the shockwave hammering the hull. The second strikes the port side just after the bridge. No explosion, a dud, the fuse failed, but the kinetic energy of 500 pounds of steel moving at terminal velocity tears through plating like paper. The third bomb doesn't miss. The bomb penetrates the port side at the computer room level, through steel, through bulkheads, into the heart of the ship. It explodes. The detonation tears through the Coventry's machinery spaces. Fire and overpressure blast through compartments in microseconds. The main engines die, no power, no propulsion. Emergency lighting flickers, fails, returns. The ship shudders, a whole vessel feeling the wound. Hart Dyke is thrown against the bulkhead. He steadies himself. The operations room lights are still on, but alarms scream from every console. Damage reports flood in, voices overlapping, controlled, but urgent.
Fire in the computer room. Main engines offline. Flooding compartments 3 and 4. 2 more bombs hit. The fourth strikes further aft, punching through the deck into the engine room. Another explosion. More fire. The fifth bomb enters near the same location, so close the impact points almost overlap. Twin detonations gut the engineering spaces. Metal warps under impossible heat. Seawater rushes in through torn plating. The sixth bomb misses, exploding in the sea off the starboard side. The near miss doesn't matter. 4 hits out of 6. For bombs that shouldn't have exploded, Argentine ordnance notoriously unreliable, fuses designed for high-altitude release, not low-level attacks. The success rate is devastating. Coventry begins to list. Port side down. The angle increases. 5 degrees. 10 degrees. In the operations room, Hart Dyke grabs the communications panel. His voice remains steady. "This is Coventry. We have been hit. Extensive damage. Flooding cannot be contained. Below decks, the reality is worse. The computer room burns. Temperatures high enough to melt equipment, to make metal run like water. Men try to fight the fires, but the magazine spaces are close. Too close. If the fire reaches the Sea Dart missiles, the ammunition, Coventry won't sink. She'll explode." The engineering crew attempts damage control, but the flooding is catastrophic. Water pours through holes large enough to drive trucks through. Pumps can't keep pace. The port list increases. 15 degrees now. The ship is dying. Hart Dyke makes the calculation every captain dreads. He can see the angle of deck. He knows the flooding reports. He knows what happens when a ship reaches 30 degrees. Men get trapped. Watertight doors become walls. Escape routes disappear. Prepare to abandon ship. The order goes out. Controlled, methodical, but fast. The crew has practiced this. They know their stations, their life rafts, their survival equipment. But practice happens on calm water with time to think. This is real. The ship tilts further with every passing second. Men scramble for ladders. Some areas are already inaccessible. The angle too severe, the passages flooded. Others find themselves sliding across decks that should be level. Equipment breaks loose. A ship designed for horizontal becomes vertical. 19 men are trapped below. The list prevents escape. Watertight doors that should open won't budge against the weight of water. Voices call through steel barriers. Rescue attempts begin, desperate hands working to cut through or force open doors. But the angle keeps increasing. 20 degrees. 25. The deck cants at 28 degrees. Hart Dyke stands near the bridge, watching his crew evacuate. Men climb down scrambling nets thrown over the starboard side, the high side now exposed to air. Others leap directly into the South Atlantic. The water temperature hovers just above freezing. Survival time? Minutes, not hours. Life rafts deploy, orange canopies inflating against gray sea. Some rafts flip in the swell. Men swim toward them, arms already weakening in the cold. Others cling to the brie, to anything that floats. The destroyer's list accelerates. 30 degrees. HMS Broadsword maneuvers closer, her crew throwing lines, launching her seaboat. The frigate can't come too near. If Coventry rolls completely, the suction could pull Broadsword down with her. But her crew works at the limit of safety, hauling survivors from the water. Every minute counts. Hart Dyke does a final sweep of the bridge, the operations room, the communication center, looking for anyone left behind, anyone who might still escape. The angle makes movement nearly impossible. He climbs hand over hand, using equipment as handholds. The ship groans, metal stressed beyond design limits, bulkheads failing, the structure breaking apart from within. He finds the deck again. Most of the crew is off, some still in the water, some already aboard Broadsword. But 19 remain trapped below, and Hart Dyke has known since the damage reports came in, that they won't be coming out. The captain is supposed to be last off. Naval tradition, naval law, naval honor. But standing on a sinking ship achieves nothing except adding one more casualty to the list. Hart Dyke makes his way to the starboard side. Men reach up from a life raft. He steps off into space. The cold hits like a physical blow. Water in his nose, his mouth, soaking through uniform layers. Hands grab him, pull him toward the raft. He's aboard, watching his ship die from sea level. Coventry's list reaches 35 degrees. The port side rail touches water. The Sea Dart launcher on the foredeck points at the sky. The Union flag on the bridge roof, meant to identify her to friendly aircraft, slides toward the ocean. Hart Dyke watches. 300 feet of destroyer, 4,100 tons, built at Camel Laird in 1974, commissioned in 1978. 4 years of service. 20 minutes from bomb impact to abandonment. The ship pauses at 40 degrees, as if considering whether to fight. Then, physics takes over.
Water floods compartments faster than air can escape. The weight distribution shifts past the point of return. Coventry rolls. She goes port side down, the starboard side rising impossibly high. Men in life rafts see the full length of her underside. The red anti-fouling paint, the sonar dome, the propellers still and useless. The angle increases past 90 degrees. The ship inverts completely, keel pointing at clouds. For a moment she floats upside down, capsized but still on the surface. Then the air trapped inside escapes, and the water rushes in to fill the void. Coventry slides stern first into the South Atlantic. The bow lifts, hangs vertical for seconds that feel longer. Then she's gone. 20 minutes and 30 seconds from first bomb impact to final disappearance. The water surface churns with debris, oil, foam, then settles. The ocean looks unchanged, as if a warship never existed here at all. HMS Broadsword's crew works in organized chaos. 170 men poled from the South Atlantic. They come aboard hypothermic, oil-soaked, some injured, all in shock. The frigate's medical teams move between them. Warm blankets, hot drinks, treatment for burns and trauma. Some survivors can't stop shaking. Others sit silent, staring at nothing. Hart Dyke stands on Broadsword's deck, watching the search continue. Helicopters sweep the area, seeking Wessex, looking for the 19 still missing. But the water temperature tells the truth. Anyone trapped when Coventry rolled has no chance. Anyone still in the water after 30 minutes has no chance. The search continues anyway, because you search until you're ordered to stop. The captain takes a mental inventory. His ship, gone. His crew, 170 accounted for, 19 lost. The mission failed. Coventry was supposed to draw aircraft away from San Carlos Bay, supposed to protect the landing force with her Sea Dart missiles. Instead, she became a target herself, sunk by the same kind of low-level attack she was meant to defend against. Hart Dyke's uniform drips seawater onto Broadsword's deck. Someone hands him tea. He drinks it, tasting nothing. The operations officer appears, asking questions. What happened? What was the timeline? What did radar show? Hart Dyke answers. The captain's job doesn't end when the ship sinks. The reports still need writing. The Board of Inquiry will want details. Every decision, every maneuver, every second from contact to sinking. On the horizon, smoke still marks where Coventry went down. Oil spreads across the surface, a slick memorial. Debris floats, life rafts, equipment, pieces of a ship. The helicopters continue their search pattern. They find bodies. 3 eventually. 16 remain entombed in the wreck. 300 feet below, port side down on the seabed. 435 miles away, Pablo Carballo lands in Rio Gallegos. His Skyhawk is intact. No damage, no casualties in his flight. All 4 aircraft returned. He climbs out, legs unsteady. The adrenaline crash beginning. Ground crews swarm the aircraft, checking for battle damage, preparing for the next mission. The debriefing is immediate. What did you see? What did you hit? Carballo describes the attack. The destroyer turning, the bombs releasing, pulling up and away before he could observe impacts. But he saw explosions. They all saw explosions. The intelligence officer takes notes. Radio intercepts will confirm later. The British transmitted distress signals. A Type 42 destroyer went down. Carballo doesn't celebrate. None of them do. The mission succeeded, yes. But Grupo 5 has lost too many pilots, too many aircraft, to treat survival as anything other than temporary. Tomorrow, there will be another mission. Another low-level attack. Another run through British missile defenses. The odds catch up eventually. In London, the Ministry of Defense prepares a statement. HMS Coventry sunk by enemy air attack. Casualties being confirmed. Next of kin being notified. The Falklands War is 3 weeks old. Coventry is the 4th British ship lost. She won't be the last.
The Board of Inquiry convenes weeks later, after the war ends. Official designation? DEFE 691336. Report of the Board of Inquiry into the loss of HMS Coventry, 25th May, 1982. The documents will remain classified for 31 years, sealed until 2013, when the National Archives finally releases them to public scrutiny. The inquiry examines every decision. Why was Coventry positioned so close to land?
The Sea Dart missile system requires distance, time for radar lock, time for missile flight, time for interception. Operating within miles of Pebble Island gave Argentine aircraft terrain masking until the final seconds. The answer in the report: Coventry was paired with broadsword specifically because the frigate's Sea Wolf system handles close-range threats. The tactic should have worked. Why did Sea Wolf fail? The report is precise. When Coventry turned to engage the northern pair of Skyhawks, broadsword followed, maintaining station. Standard procedure. But Coventry's superstructure blocked Sea Wolf's radar line of sight to the southern attack. When Coventry reversed her turn, Sea Wolf reacquired, but the launcher jammed. One missile fired. The second never left the rail. Mechanical failure at the worst possible moment. Could Coventry have survived? The report catalogs the damage. 4 500-pound bombs. 3 exploded. Impact points through the computer room, through both engine rooms. Catastrophic flooding, main power lost. The list developed so rapidly that damage control became impossible. From first impact to 30-degree list, under 10 minutes. From 30 degrees to capsizing, another 10 minutes. The report concludes, given the location and number of hits, the ship was unsalvageable. Hart Dyke reads the report later, after it's finalized. He sees his decisions dissected. The positioning, the maneuvers, the timing of the abandoned ship order. The inquiry finds no fault. The tactical situation was impossible. The mechanical failure was unpredictable. The loss was not preventable given the circumstances. But Hart Dyke knows what the report doesn't say. 19 men died under his command. 19 families received notifications. 19 names added to the memorial. The survivors scatter after the war. Some stay in the Navy, others leave, unable to reconcile peace with what they experienced in those 20 minutes. Hart Dyke continues his career, eventually reaching the rank of Rear Admiral. But Coventry follows him. He writes a memoir, 4 Weeks in May, The Loss of HMS Coventry, published in 2007, 25 years after the sinking. An attempt to process, to explain, to honor the 19 who didn't make it off. In Argentina, Carballo becomes a legend. The pilot who sank a British destroyer. Group 05 loses 22 aircraft during the war, half its strength, but Carballo survives every mission. He writes his own memoir, Halcones del Malvinas, Hawks of the Malvinas. His account of May 25th is clinical, factual. 4 aircraft, 6 bombs, 4 hits. Mission success. But between the lines, the same questions Hart Dyke asks. What if the angle had been different? What if the bombs had been duds, like so many others? What if Sea Wolf had worked? The Falklands War ends June 14, 1982. Argentina surrenders. The British retake the islands. Final tally. British losses include 2 destroyers, 2 frigates, 1 container ship, 1 landing ship. Argentine losses include 1 cruiser, 1 submarine, and approximately 100 aircraft. Total casualties: 649 Argentine military, 255 British military, 3 Falkland Islander civilians. HMS Coventry accounts for 19 of those British dead. 300 feet below the South Atlantic surface, HMS Coventry rests portside down. The position: 51 degrees 6 minutes south, 59 degrees 46 minutes west, northwest of Pebble Island, where she went down May 25, 1982. The wreck lies in international waters, close to the Falklands, but not close enough for territorial jurisdiction. She remains there, undisturbed, a steel tomb for 16 men whose bodies were never recovered. The ocean changes things. 43 years of current and chemistry. Metal corrodes, paint flakes away. Marine life colonizes every surface, kelp forests growing from what was once a warship's hull. But the basic structure remains. The Sea Dart launcher, the 4.5-inch gun, the bridge where Hart Dyke gave his final orders, all recognizable, all transformed into something between ship and reef. The British government designates the wreck a war grave. Protected site, controlled access. Diving requires permission. Few get it. The families of the lost receive priority.
Some make the journey, wanting to see where their sons or husbands or fathers remain. Others prefer distance, preferring memory to reality. 3 men were recovered from the water on May 25th. Their bodies returned to families. 16 stayed with the ship. Memorial services happen periodically. Anniversary commemorations. Veterans gather, fewer each year as age and time thin the ranks. They stand at the approximate coordinates, or as close as civilian vessels can approach, and remember. The HMS Coventry Association maintains contact among survivors, coordinates reunions, preserves the history. Their website lists every crew member who served, every casualty, the timeline of that final day. In Portsmouth, the HMS Coventry Memorial bears 19 names. Leading cook, B. Ardley. Leading steward, M. Bailey. Cook, S. Dawson. Leading stores accountant, I. Dobson. Cook, M. Fowler. Acting leading airman, D. Goodwin. Petty officer, C. Hastings. Cook, K. Ho. Petty officer, M. Jackson. Cook, N. Jeffrey. Chief Petty Officer, A. Laird. Weapons Engineering Artificer, I. McCallum. Chief Petty Officer, A. Palmer. Able Seaman, P. Pugh. Acting Cook, I. Simon. Cook, T. Simon. Cook, A. Sillence. Able Seaman, G. Sloan. Cook, B. Wallace. Most were young. Several were teenagers. Leading Airman David Goodwin was 20. Cook Andrew Sillence was 18. They enlisted for careers, for adventure, for service to country. They died in a war over islands most British citizens couldn't locate on a map before April 1982.
Hart Dyke visits the memorial when he can, stands before those names. He survived, they didn't. Command means living with that mathematics. The inquiry cleared him, the Navy promoted him, fellow officers respect his service. But the names remain, carved in stone, permanent in a way that explanations never are. In Argentina, there's no memorial for the pilot Hugo del Valle Palaver, the first Skyhawk shot down that morning by Coventry's Sea Dart. His name appears on military rolls, listed among the 98 Argentine Air Force personnel killed during the Falklands War. Carballo never mentions him in interviews. Military history focuses on victories, not the costs required to achieve them. The Douglas A-4 Skyhawk entered service with the U.S. Navy in 1956, designed by Ed Heinemann as a lightweight attack aircraft, a hot rod meant to deliver nuclear weapons or conventional ordnance at low level, then escape at high speed. The design philosophy: keep it simple, keep it small, keep it cheap. Maximum weight: 24,500 pounds fully loaded. Top speed: 670 miles per hour. Combat radius: 340 miles. By 1982, the Skyhawk is obsolete by superpower standards. The U.S. Navy operates newer aircraft, the A-6 Intruder, the A-7 Corsair II, eventually the FA-18 Hornet. But for smaller nations with limited budgets, the Skyhawk remains viable. Argentina purchases 75 A-4Bs and A-4Cs between 1966 and 1970. Refurbished American aircraft, sold surplus, still capable when properly maintained. The Falklands War exposes every limitation. No electronic countermeasures. The aircraft lacks equipment to jam or deceive British radar. No chaff or flare dispensers. No defense against missiles except pilot skill and low-altitude flight. No radar warning receiver. Pilots don't know they're locked until missiles launch. The bombs themselves present problems. Fuses calibrated for high-altitude release, not the low-level attacks Argentine doctrine requires. Many bombs hit their targets but fail to explode, passing through ships without detonating. Despite these handicaps, the Skyhawk becomes Argentina's most effective anti-ship weapon. Grupo 4, Grupo 5, and the Navy's 3rd Fighter Attack Squadron fly mission after mission into San Carlos Bay, Bomb Alley, attacking the British landing force. They sink HMS Ardent on May 21, damage HMS Argonaut the same day, hit HMS Antelope on May 23. Unexploded bomb detonates during disposal, breaking the frigate in half.
On May 25th, the same day Coventry goes down, other Skyhawk formations sink the container ship Atlantic Conveyor, destroying vital helicopters and supplies. The cost is staggering. Of the 75 A-4s Argentina operates at the war's start, 22 are confirmed lost by June 14th. Some shot down by Sea Dart missiles, others by Sea Wolf, by Sea Cat, by Rapier ground-launched missiles. Several fall to British Harrier jump jets, subsonic vertical takeoff fighters that prove surprisingly effective in air combat. A few Skyhawks are destroyed on the ground when British Special Forces raid Pebble Island airstrip May 15th. The pilots fly anyway. Carballo's formation on May 25th represents the standard profile: 4 aircraft, low-level approach, visual bombing, immediate egress. No loitering, no second passes. You get one chance to hit the target, then fuel considerations force you home. The round trip from Rio Gallegos to the Falklands and back pushes the Skyhawks' range to its limit. Combat over the islands allows maybe 5 minutes before reserves become critical. Grupo 5 loses its commander, Primer Teniente Hector Volponi, on May 23, shot down attacking HMS Antelope, 29 years old. His replacement, Capitan Carballo, leads the mission 2 days later that sinks Coventry. The unit keeps flying until the ceasefire. Every pilot knows the statistics. Every pilot understands probability. But the missions continue because war doesn't pause for reasonable calculation. Post-war analysis by British and American military observers reaches consistent conclusions. The Argentine pilots displayed exceptional courage and skill. Operating obsolete aircraft without adequate support systems, they pressed attacks through heavy defenses, achieving results disproportionate to their resources. If the bombs had been properly fused, if even half the hits had detonated, British losses would have been catastrophic. As it stands, unexploded ordnance saves multiple ships from destruction. The A-4 Skyhawk remains in service with several nations into the 21st century. Brazil operates upgraded versions until 2023. Israel modifies theirs so extensively they become nearly new aircraft. But the Falklands represents the type's final major combat deployment. The last time Skyhawks sink ships in actual warfare. The last time pilots fly 1950s-era aircraft against modern naval vessels and succeed. Carballo's bombs hit Coventry at approximately 1:57 p.m., May 25, 1982. The aircraft that delivered them, C-242, survives the war. Grupo 5 retires it from service years later. It sits now in a museum, painted in wartime colors, 3 bomb silhouettes stenciled below the cockpit. A relic of a forgotten conflict over islands most people still can't find on a map. HMS Coventry was a Type 42 destroyer, Sheffield class, Batch 1. The Royal Navy commissioned 8 Batch 1 destroyers between 1975 and 1980, designed specifically for air defense. Primary armament, the Sea Dart missile system. Purpose, protect carrier battle groups and amphibious forces from Soviet aircraft and anti-ship missiles. The Cold War threat that shaped every design decision.
Sea Dart works brilliantly against its intended targets: high-altitude bombers, long-range cruise missiles, threats that approach from distance, giving the system time to track, lock, and engage. The missile itself is capable: 30 miles range, Mach 2.5 speed, semi-active radar homing. In ideal conditions, Sea Dart achieves impressive kill rates during testing. The Falklands War provides non-ideal conditions. Argentine pilots don't fly high. They approach at wave-top height, 50 feet, sometimes lower, using terrain and sea clutter to mask their radar signatures. They appear on British screens only in the final miles, sometimes the final seconds. Sea Dart requires time to calculate firing solutions, time to launch, time for the missile to reach its target. Against low-flying aircraft at close range, that time doesn't exist. HMS Sheffield discovers this limitation on May 4, 1982. An Argentine superétendard fires an Exocet anti-ship missile at range. Sheffield's radar detects the launch but cannot achieve lock in time. The Exocet hits, doesn't explode, but its remaining fuel ignites fires the crew cannot control. Sheffield burns for 6 days before sinking under tow. 20 crew members die.
the first major British loss of the war. Coventry represents the second Type 42 sunk. HMS Glasgow takes bomb damage but survives. The pattern is clear. The Type 42's design optimizes for threats that don't materialize while leaving vulnerabilities to threats that do. The ships are top-heavy, too much superstructure above the waterline, reducing stability when damaged. They carry aluminum structures that burn intensely when hit. They lack close-in weapon systems, no phalanx guns, no last-ditch defense against aircraft that penetrate the missile envelope. The pairing with Type 22 frigates, broadsword with Coventry, brilliant with Glasgow, attempts to compensate. Type 22s carry Sea Wolf, designed precisely for close-range, low-altitude threats. The tactic works when Sea Wolf functions. HMS Brilliant shoots down multiple Argentine aircraft, protecting the landing force. But Broadsword's launcher jam on May 25th illustrates the fundamental problem. Relying on a single system creates single points of failure. The Royal Navy learns. Post-war modifications add close-in weapon systems to surviving Type 42s. Phalanx guns, updated radar, better damage control procedures. Batch 2 and Batch 3 destroyers, already under construction during the war, incorporate lessons from the South Atlantic. They stretch the hull, improving seakeeping. They add more capable electronics. They address the aluminum fire problem. But these improvements come too late for Sheffield, too late for Coventry. The ships that fought in 1982 fought with the equipment and doctrine developed for a different war against a different enemy. Soviet bombers flying predictable patterns at high altitude. Not subsonic attack aircraft flown by skilled pilots willing to fly 50 feet above the ocean to achieve surprise. Hart Dyke's positioning of Coventry near Pebble Island follows tactical doctrine. The Type 42 air defense destroyer protects other assets, in this case, drawing threats away from San Carlos Bay. The pairing with Broadsword should have provided overlapping coverage. But doctrine assumes systems work as designed. It assumes mechanical reliability. It assumes the enemy cooperates by presenting targets the weapons can engage. Carballo's formation doesn't cooperate. They split into pairs, forcing Coventry to choose which threat to engage. They time their approach so Broadsword's radar loses lock during Coventry's turn. They attack from the west, using terrain masking until the final seconds. And they accept casualties. Hugo del Valle Palaver dies to Coventry's Sea Dart that morning, proving the system works when given proper geometry and time. The tactical problem has no solution with available equipment. Engage the northern pair, the southern pair attacks unopposed. Engage the southern pair, the northern pair has free run. Turn to maintain Sea Wolf coverage, lose Sea Dart firing position. Hold course, lose both systems. Carballo doesn't need to defeat British technology. He only needs to present problems that technology cannot solve simultaneously. 20 minutes and 30 seconds. First bomb to final sinking. The Type 42 destroyer, designed to protect the fleet, becomes a casualty herself, undone by aircraft 2 decades obsolete and bombs that barely function. War doesn't ask whether the technology is sophisticated, only whether it works when required. David Hart Dyke returns to England 3 weeks after Coventry sinks. The war ends June 14th. The task force begins its journey home. Hart Dyke flies back earlier. Casualties evacuate first, then commanders required for inquiries and debriefings. He lands at RAF Prize Norton wearing borrowed uniform. His own went down with the ship. The reunion with his wife happens in private. No cameras, no interviews. What do you say after watching your ship capsize, after ordering men to abandon, after knowing 19 didn't make it off the ship? Hart Dyke doesn't have answers, only the facts. The Board of Inquiry wants facts. The Admiralty wants facts. His family wants reassurance that he's alive and whole. He can provide 2 of those 3. The nightmares start weeks later. Not during the inquiry, not during the formal proceedings when duty and protocol provide structure. Afterwards, when there's time to process, when sleep removes the conscious filters. He dreams of the list, the deck tilting, the angle increasing past recovery. He dreams of voices through steel bulkheads, men trapped below calling for help that cannot arrive. He wakes and knows they're memories, not dreams, that these things happened, that his sleeping brain simply replays truth. He stays in the Navy. Promotion to Rear Admiral comes eventually. Commands follow: HMS Grafton, HMS Illustrated. Each posting adds distance from May 25, 1982. But Coventry remains. Annual memorial services, reunions with survivors, letters from families of the lost asking questions that have no satisfying answers. Why their son? Why their husband? Hart Dyke can explain the tactical situation, the mechanical failures, the geometry of the attack, but explanations don't resurrect the dead. The memoir takes 25 years to write. 4 Weeks in May publishes in 2007. Hart Dyke is 69 years old, retired from service, finally able to organize the experience into narrative form. The book details everything: the pre-war Mediterranean deployment, the rush south after Argentina invades, the daily operations off the Falklands, the attack, the sinking, and the aftermath. Critics call it one of the best first-hand accounts of modern naval warfare. Survivors read it and remember. Families of the lost read it and grieve again. In one interview, Hart Dyke describes the moment Coventry capsized. It was black with people on fire, screaming and dying. The sea was thick with oil. I looked back and watched her roll over and sink. Your ship is everything to you as a captain. Losing her is like losing your right arm. Pablo Carballo never meets Hart Dyke. The two men exist in parallel narratives, one who commanded the ship, one who sank it. Carballo's war continues beyond May 25th. More missions, more low-level attacks. He survives every sortie, a statistical anomaly in a unit that loses half its aircraft. When the war ends, he returns to peacetime duties, eventually retiring as a senior officer in the Argentine Air Force. His memoir, Halcones de Malvinas, provides the Argentine perspective. The missions from Rio Gallegos, the fear before takeoff, knowing the odds, the focus required during the attack, no room for thought, only execution of training and instinct. The relief afterwards, landing safely, climbing out of an aircraft that brought you home again. Carballo describes May 25th in technical terms: speeds, altitudes, bomb release points. He does not mention the 19 crewmen.
The survivors of Coventry scatter into civilian life. Some stay Navy. Most leave, unable to reconcile the memory of that day with continued service. They carry the experience differently. Some talk about it, processing through repetition. Others prefer silence, locking May 25th into compartments the mind can seal. The HMS Coventry Association provides community, others who understand without explanation, who share the specific knowledge of what it means to abandon ship in the South Atlantic. At reunions, they tell stories, not about the sinking, that's understood, doesn't require retelling. They talk about before, the Mediterranean deployment, port visits in Gibraltar, Malta, Naples, the crossing south, flying fish and albatross, the ordinary moments of naval service that the war interrupts but cannot erase. They talk about after, careers, families, the decades that followed, building lives on top of memory, not instead of it. 170 men survived. 19 did not. The arithmetic is simple. The reality is not. May 25th becomes a date marked in British and Argentine military calendars. For Britain, the worst single day of the Falklands War. HMS Coventry sunk. Atlantic Conveyor sunk. A container ship carrying vital Chinook helicopters and supplies. Multiple casualties across the task force. For Argentina, proof that obsolete aircraft flown with skill and courage can achieve results against modern naval forces. The tactical lessons reshape naval doctrine worldwide. The U.S. Navy studies the Falklands extensively. Their conclusion: surface ships without adequate close-in weapons systems are vulnerable. Every major warship receives phalanx guns, radar-guided 20mm Gatling cannons designed to engage missiles and aircraft in the final seconds before impact. The concept of layered defense becomes standard: long-range missiles, medium-range missiles, short-range guns. Multiple overlapping systems eliminating single points of failure. The British Royal Navy accelerates programs already underway. Type 23 frigates receive improved air defense systems. Type 45 destroyers, the eventual replacement for Type 42s, incorporate sophisticated radar and missile technology specifically addressing low-altitude threats. The lessons cost lives to learn, but reshape the fleet for decades. Argentina draws different conclusions. The Air Force proves that determination and tactical skill can compensate for technological disadvantage, but the cost is unsustainable. 22 A-4 Skyhawks lost, 98 Air Force personnel killed, for an ultimately unsuccessful war. Post-war Argentina struggles economically, politically, militarily. The Skyhawk force never recovers its pre-war strength. By the 1990s, budget constraints ground most remaining aircraft. The last Argentine Skyhawks retire in the 2010s, replaced by nothing. The Air Force that once sank British warships can barely maintain operational squadrons. The geopolitical impact resonates longer than the tactical lessons. Britain maintains military presence in the Falklands. RAF Mount Pleasant opens in 1985, capable of hosting Typhoon fighters and providing air defense coverage that didn't exist in 1982. Argentina never renounces its claim to the islands, but lacks means to enforce it. The war settles nothing permanently, only establishes current conditions backed by military capability. For the families of the 19 lost aboard Coventry, legacy means something different. Annual memorial services at Portsmouth, visits to the Falklands if they can afford the journey, watching their children grow into adults their fathers never met. Time provides distance but not closure. There is no closure when someone dies at 18 or 20, when their life becomes a fixed point while the world moves forward around it. Hart Dyke attends memorial services when health permits. Fewer survivors appear each year. Age and illness thin the ranks. Eventually, there will be no one left who stood on Coventry's deck, who felt the bombs hit, who swam in the South Atlantic on May 25, 1982. The experience becomes history rather than memory, preserved in documents and recordings, but no longer lived. Carballo ages in Argentina, his role in the war becoming increasingly distant. Younger generations know the Falklands, the Malvinas in Spanish, as historical event, not lived experience. The politics remain contentious, but the veterans grow old. Grupo 5 holds reunions, fewer pilots attending each time. They share the bond of those who flew impossible missions and survived. But survival means outliving not just the war, but eventually everyone who fought it. The wreck of HMS Coventry rests 300 feet down, slowly dissolving into the South Atlantic. Steel corrodes, structure weakens. Eventually, decades, maybe a century from now, the ship will collapse completely, becoming part of the seabed rather than an object resting on it. The 16 men entombed inside will become part of that dissolution, their remains returned to ocean chemistry. In Portsmouth, the memorial stones endure longer than steel. Granite weathers slowly. The names remain legible, carved deep enough to outlast generations. Leading cook B. Ardley. Leading steward M. Bailey. Cook C. Dawson. 19 names, 19 lives. The memorial reduces them to rank and surname, stripping away the complexity of lived experience. But it preserves their existence, proves they were here, that they mattered beyond being casualties in a footnote war. The date holds no special significance before it happens, just another day in a war the most of the world ignores. The major powers focus elsewhere: Cold War tensions, Middle East conflicts, economic concerns. Two nations fighting over islands 8,000 miles from anywhere seem almost quaint, a throwback to colonial disputes that should have ended decades earlier. But for the men aboard HMS Coventry that morning, the date becomes everything. The last day some of them see, the day that divides existence into before and after for everyone else. Captain David Hart Dyke awakens that morning, not knowing he'll be swimming for his life by afternoon. He eats breakfast, reviews intelligence reports, plans the day's operations. Standard routine. The war has lasted 3 weeks. It will last 3 more. Nothing about May 25th suggests it will be different from May 24th or May 26th.
Pablo Carballo climbs into his Skyhawk, not knowing this mission will define his career. He's flown strikes before, he'll fly strikes after, but this one, 4 aircraft, 6 bombs, 20 minutes, this one achieves what military forces pursue and rarely accomplish: decisive action. A warship sunk, mission success measured in steel and lives. 19 British sailors awakened that morning thinking about ordinary things. What's for lunch, letters to write home, the monotony of action stations and radar watches. Some are teenagers, some are career Navy. All assume they'll see tomorrow. Statistics favor that assumption. Most people survive most days, even during wars. May 25th proves otherwise for 19. The attack lasts minutes. Carballo's formation appears on radar at 1:55 p.m. Bombs hit at 1:57 p.m. Coventry capsizes at 2:20 p.m. 25 minutes from contact to sinking. In that span, everything changes and nothing changes. A ship becomes a wreck. 170 men become survivors. 19 become casualties. The war continues exactly as before, simply with different pieces on the board. Hart Dyke spends the rest of his life processing those 25 minutes, the decisions made, the outcomes achieved, the men lost. He reaches flag rank, commands other ships, serves with distinction, but May 25th remains the defining experience, the moment when responsibility becomes tangible, not abstract duty to Navy and nation, but immediate consequence measured in names carved on memorial stones. Carballo returns to base and files his report. Target engaged, bombs released, secondary explosions observed. He doesn't meet the men he kills, doesn't know their names or ages or families. Modern warfare provides that distance. You press a button, release ordnance, turn away. Someone else calculates the damage. Someone else counts bodies.
The pilot simply flies the mission and lands safely, success measured by his own survival as much as enemy destruction. The war ends 3 weeks later. Argentina surrenders June 14th. British forces retake the Falklands. Governments declare victory. Populations move on to other concerns. The Falklands fade from front pages, from news broadcasts, from public consciousness. Just another forgotten conflict in a century full of them. But memory persists where headlines don't. Hart Dyke remembers. The survivors remember. The families of the lost remember. Carballo remembers. They carry May 25, 1982 differently, as triumph, as trauma, as loss, as duty fulfilled or duty survived, but they all carry it. 300 feet below the South Atlantic, HMS Coventry rests in darkness. No light reaches that depth, no sound except the slow movement of current against corroding steel. The ship that once cut through waves at 30 knots, that tracked aircraft and launched missiles, that carried 300 men across oceans, now simply exists. A presence on the seafloor, a monument to a day when everything happened too fast to prevent and too slow to forget. May 25, 1982, the day A-4 Skyhawks sank a British destroyer, the day 19 men died doing their duty, the day that proves wars aren't won by technology or strategy alone, but by human beings making split-second decisions at wave-top altitude or on tilting decks, trying to survive moments that become history. The ocean keeps its secrets. The memorials preserve their names. And somewhere between those 2 points, between the wreck below and the stone above, the truth of that day remains. Not in tactics or equipment or official reports, but in the simple fact that men died and men survived. And neither category fully captures what it means to have been there when steel met steel and the ocean claimed another ship.